Hey, so before we get to Marvel stuff, I want to talk about a few things. I just started reading this book called Milk and Honey by Rippy Kavar, and it's pretty good. It's a poetry book, and halfway through, it's not that hard because the pages mainly look like this, but it's very beautiful. And I want to get more into poetry, so if anybody has any recommendations, please tell them in the comments. Marvel Studios is a very strange thing. They're a studio that make movies that mean a lot to many people. At the very same time, they are very corporate, so they have to stick to a certain formula. But now they've gone through a creative bump. What do you do after making the biggest movie of all time? Well, because they're based off of a publishing company, they can really do whatever they want. So, we've got 4 movies, 5 TV shows. That's a lot, so let's go one by one. Straight out of the gate, we get a TV show. Not just a TV show, but a TV show about TV shows. And they really commit to this sitcom idea. They bring in a live studio audience, they make it black and white, and it really is also unsettling. That something is actually wrong here. And they also do a new trend, which is bringing in a secret mystery villain. And at first we thought it was Mephisto, then we realized, nah, it's Agatha Harkness. I really didn't like her that much, I didn't think she was that interesting. I like Catherine Hahn, but, really the villain here is Wanda. And it's interesting because she's also the main hero. So they have something different out of the gate. They had some gray morality here, but they decided, we need something like more Marvelish, something safe. So they decided to put Agatha there, which I thought was a cheap idea. Also cheap. They bring in a non-MCU character, Quicksilver from the X-Men movies, and they just waste him. He's not really Quicksilver, and he's just an elaborate boner joke. Like, if you didn't make these characters, why don't you respect them? Like, it makes me disappointed. Also, but I do like the show, I like how they make Wanda and Vision, like, you care about them. And then when you watch the earlier movies, if they feel the same. They feel like you care about them just as much as you care about Iron Man or Cap. They really build these characters, and they're cohesive. At the end of the day, I think it's a very unique show. It's very creative. It's very melancholy. And it has a strong stylistic approach, and I respect it for that. If you weren't on board with Wandavision, well, now here's your palate cleanser. It's a very grounded show, grounded in military and politics, and it's about the legacy of Captain America. It's not about, being a great American soldier. No, it's about being a good first responder. And it's very critical how we see American heroes. Zemo talks about it, and John Walker lives through it. He's this guy who's just swept up emotion, whether it be pride or sadness or grief or whatever. He just does what he thinks is okay, which usually it's not. And it also, I like the Flag Smashers. I think they have a real life conflict, and it feels like, enough is enough. We need to bring down the system. And they really just want justice. And I get it when Sam makes this speech, because you actually see that. I just hate that criticism, But also, Sam himself is a very interesting character and really goes through a journey. Isaiah tells him, no self-respecting black man would ever become Captain America. And that's tough. So when you actually see him become Captain America, you feel like he's earned it, There's actual struggle, and his story is also not over. I do like this show, I think it may not be everybody's favorite, but it really speaks to me, and it's relevant. I like it. Black Widow has a lot going for it. I like that Florence Pugh and David Harbour are finally in the MCU, and Dreykov, the actor, he does an incredible job. He's very scary in this movie. And I really like the Red Room. I like the way they fight. It's very much like ballet. It's gorgeous. However, when I ever think of this movie, it's just really criticism. Like, we asked for this movie, but we didn't ask for it late, And then Taskmaster, which I think is a really interesting character in the comic books, because he's a freelance mercenary and he goes by the own beat of his drum. But he's like a drone, like just this mind-controlled thing. Like, and I hate that Marvel tried to cover up this bad writing by saying, well, it's a girl, so you can't criticize it. No, we're going to criticize it. Not because it's a girl, because it's really just bad writing. I felt that it was ugly that Marvel did that. Speaking about ugly, like the camera work. Why does it still look like mud? This is not good. I might have liked this movie more if it was a pretty looking movie, but it wasn't. And back to the mind control thing, like, what? That's such a cheap idea. Like, why don't you have these characters' mind worldview change? Like, what about that? I mean, you just make this movie just seem more childish when you put mind control in there. Anyway, but down to like the core of it, the family stuff is good. I do like it, and I think it's functional to put Civil War and Infinity War like in the middle of those two stories. But compared to the stories they alluded to, the things about the training in the Red Room, or the killing of Dreykov's daughter, or when they finally meet Hawkeye, like, those are more interesting things of the story that we actually wanted to see. But they dodged all those creative bullets to get something that was safe. Altogether, it's just a little too late. Loki is a very, very interesting show. It's by the same writers who made Rick and Morty, so it's very smart, it's always thinking, and it's very self-aware as well. And the story is really about self-acceptance and free will, which, if you get the Rick and Morty writers, you're going to have to go deep in that. Also, like that this has some of the best world building in all of the MCU, like since Black Panther. The TVA is a very mid-century modernist idea, and it's very analog. I really like that. It's really cool. I've always wanted film to do more of that. And the characters are good as well. We finally have our first anti-hero show with Loki, and he's got a good foil, which is Mobius, and he's a foil that's also a cinnamon roll. He's so sweet in this show and kind. And we also got Sylvie, who, if she was just a Loki, like another variant of Loki is also female, I would be disappointed. And I was. But then you think of her more of a enchantress, and then you're just like, finally, we get an enchantress and we get a Loki variant. Like, that's really cool. And she's her own thing as well. I think it's very good. And of course, Kang was awesome, But I also feel like, at the end of the day, this show just feels like it's rambling. It feels like a run-on sentence that feels like it's going nowhere. And then once it gets to its final destination, it's unsatisfying. So that's really how I feel about it. So what if spawned out of the idea of Marvel thinking, what can we do that we can't do in live action? So they decided to make Marvel's version of Twilight Zone and make the Watcher their version of Rod Sterling. It's a genius idea. It's right, outside the books. And I grew up with that show, so it's a little nostalgic trip. I like that. Also like the animation, they go for 2D and they make it look really good. It has a good energy, which is very high frame rate. And I just don't like the characters' bodies, how they move. It feels very stiff. And you can tell that there was a lot of 3D animation in here. But that's a little nitpick, because also what they do with the animation is that they have real life lighting, It looks like they're using anamorphic lens, focal lens, They really have that shallow depth of field. And really, it's an animation. They made this all on the computer. I think that's really cool. And I think the stories are pretty good as well. We've got characters like Killmonger and T'Challa's episodes where they're like 5 stars, amazing, incredible. They really capture it. We got Doctor Strange episodes, which is like the best episode, like probably of the entire MCU. It's really cool. And then we got some of the goofy stuff, the stuff that really, like Thor's episode, the zombie episode, like those feel like a cartoon for kids. It doesn't seem like real, cinema storytelling, and it's kind of disappointing, And then we got the bloated storytelling of the last episode, which has its moments, but I think I just hate it because Thor is in that episode, and I just don't like Thor in this show. But altogether, I think it's a great idea. I think it was executed pretty well overall, and whatever problems they have, they can fix in the next season. I like What If. In genre, Shang-Chi is a martial arts film. I like that I have to mention that because it really does commit to its genre. Amazing idea. Also, Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, takes ownership of his character. I mean, he's a good actor, but he decides this time to go hard. He does his own stunts. He trains super hard. He thanks everyone in the process. I'm telling you, he's gonna become an A-lister. Like, he might become like Tom Cruise level. And let's not overlook this fact. He wore Air Jordans in the last battle scene. Like, I mean, that's some respect right there. I love that. Also, Tony Leung, he's a legend, and he's just fierce in this movie. He's scary, but he has the affectionate father side as well. So you can play both of those roles really well. A lot like Thanos. He's top tier Marvel villain for sure. And then we got Aquafina, who does a great job in this movie. She is the best friend, but she defies the trope by having some really good, stuff to do in this movie. She does this in flying colors. And then just the movie has a bunch of cool moments. The bus scene, the gambling scene, all of this is really cool. And then the camera work by Bill Pope, the legend, the guy who did the Spider-Man trilogy, And then we got the production design, the concept art for Tallow, that all of this is so cool, My only criticism is that they wrote themselves in a corner with the big stupid monster at the end. I get it, and they also threw away a potential really cool character with the Death Dealer. He looks so cool, but I get it. I get all these reasons. Altogether, I thought it was really good. Eternals really is a weird story. It's a story about the gods and their dealings with mankind. It's very sprawling and epic, and it talks about love and morality. There's a lot of bioethics in the story that's cosmic horror. But at the end of the day, it's very experimental. I love that for it. They have very slow and high concept scenes in this movie, and it very much is an homage to the filmmaker Terrence Malick. I've said him like 100 times. This movie doesn't feel like a Terrence Malick movie, and it definitely does not have the pacing of one, but it very much, appreciates his filmmaking and the nature and the thought-provokingness of his movies and the intimacy. And you gotta appreciate that. Please appreciate that, people. No one's talking about that enough. But let's talk about the more Marvel-ish stuff about this movie. Kumail Nanjiani is a comedian, and I love him. Well, I mean, this was a great idea. Let's have more comedians in superhero movies. Like, I love when they put Pete Davidson in The Suicide Squad. Like, okay, we got 2 of those in 1 year. Like, come on, Hollywood. This is obvious. We should put them in there. And this movie does feel much like a Justice League movie, like Marvel's version of Justice League. In fact, this is the way I was kind of writing it, was kind of how this movie turned out. It might not be Marvel's best, but definitely is probably my favorite out of what I've seen this year. Alright, here is Hawkeye. This show stars Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld, who I've wanted to see in the MCU for a while. That's also a dream come true. And they're good in the show, Yelena has probably one of the best scenes of the MCU. What makes the MCU great is their interactions. when you see Yelena and Haley Steinfeld characters meet and, you know, have a dinner together, I thought that scene was really good. But then you get to Wilson Fisk, who was the same Wilson Fisk from the Netflix show. He was done dirty in the show. I felt like he was just ridiculously goofy, unbelievable, and kind of a wimp. Every villain is really incompetent in the show. And, you know, the LARPers were funny, but they got tired at the end. You know, Jack was likable, you know, Echo was interesting for her first 5 minutes, but after that, not really. And look, I'm getting tired of talking about this show. This show is not as fun or interesting as anything else here. I mean, it's serviceable to watch, but other than that, I really have nothing to say. I'm going to tell you everything I tell everybody whenever people ask me what I thought about this movie. This movie did everything it needed to do with little else. Look, and this movie had a lot that it needed to do. You know, they need to establish, you know, stakes of the story. This story needs to feel like there is actual danger going on. You know, Peter Parker needs to change. You know, he has to change that by the end of the movie. And he does go through a good character arc, you know, a great character arc. And then with all the non-MCU villains, you know, and heroes, they gotta be able to, you know, not only have them in the movie, but have the right interactions, you know, have it be satisfying. In that way, that was a lot, and they did it well. My only issue is they didn't do much more. You know, they put Matt Murdock in there, which was, they didn't need to do that, but thank you. That was awesome. And the movie does have Spider-Man win by his wits, his smarts, but also, you know, sacrifice and knowing that he's motivated by responsibility. That's really cool. I feel like I'd like this movie more if it had like good cinematography, if it also didn't look like complete crappy mud, you know? And, you know, this movie doesn't have a lot of stylistic direction. And maybe I wouldn't be so hard in this movie if it wasn't Spider-Man, and if it wasn't completely overexposed. I feel like Spider-Man in general is just being overexposed right now. I think we have a minute to just like calm down, chill out, and just enjoy. Let's not like overexpose him. So at the end of the day, I just feel like I might like this movie more as time goes on. But right now, all I can say is Amazing Spider-Man 2 deserved better. So, at the end of the day, Marvel, they've got a lot, you know. They really tried to expand the universe in its style, and they mostly worked, you know. They really, many times committed. And, you know, but I feel like their use of non-MCU characters is kind of poor, you know. They brought them in there, and they kind of, you know, abused them. But at the same time, like, they don't need to put those characters in at all, you know. Just do their own versions of the characters, and I'm sure they would do it even better. You know, I have trust in Marvel that they can do that. And at the end of the day, they're really giving us too much. Like, it's good, it's awesome, but slow down a little, you know? We don't need it all at once. Make it feel special, you know? At the end of the day, I'm also very excited for Thor: Love and Thunder, you know? Doctor Strange and the multiverse of horror movies, you know? Moon Knight is something I've been asking for, along with Miss Marvel. You know, those are all things that are awesome, and She-Hulk is going for something new. So, I'm very excited for Marvel Studios and what they have next, so I hope, good luck.